A May day that's no emergency, just some late snow. So come sit by the warming glow of the next fireplace. We've got lots to talk about, like the cost of childcare and how family and friends are being trained up on how to better take care of kids when professional options are off the table. Suicide survivors using music as a tool to save lives.
Every time I take the stage, I say that I'm singing for my life.
Aurora's plan to provide shelter for people on the streets, a plan that's going to take years before it's ready. A candidate claiming she's being excluded from a debate because she failed to RSVP. And your Friday good news is all about the kids. You have had a week and then some, so sit down, relax, learn a little, smile some more on Next. This is fine. This is fine. It's just snowing in late May in Colorado, one day after it was 90 degrees. But hey, that's our state. So we'll gather by the fire tonight. We'll share some stories about life around here these days. You know, we could have had the reporter stand out in the snow, tell you that it's snowing. That kind of feels like an insult to your intelligence and also is not much fun for the reporter. So we'll just say the mountains and the central foothills are getting a ton of snow, but it is melting quickly on the warm ground, even more so down here at city level. We should be back in the 80s by this time next week. So, like I said, this is fine. Childcare these days is unattainable to many Coloradans. It's too expensive. There aren't enough openings, not enough teachers. So now there are families turning to family members or friends for childcare. You got grandparents, aunts, uncles, neighbors helping to raise our children. Arnusha Roy looks at how the city of Denver is trying to help them become a better part of the childcare solution.
Cecia Hernandez's living room transformation
I love these kids.
is just the beginning of the change.
Started doing things with intention.
Hernandez is a FFN provider, and while that term may seem unfamiliar, it's actually very common. We're talking about friends, family, and neighbors taking care of kids.
You know, I couldn't afford to take my children to a daycare or, you know, and so I would stay home, care for my family's children.
In Colorado, in the city of Denver, about half of the children that actually need childcare have access to a licensed childcare spot.
We noticed during the pandemic is that 67% of licensed childcare facilities closed. And we knew that children were being cared for by somebody, and it was most likely a family, friend, or neighbor.
That's when the city of Denver paired up with the Colorado Statewide Parent Coalition to scale up support so more people can go through the coalition's training program called PASO.
Learn about nutrition, the developmental stages, how to identify developmental delays, how to speak to parents about that.
The city grant covers 125 providers who can reach as many as 480 kids, stipends to get a child development associate certificate, and support a program it believes will help ease the child care shortage.
Children are going to receive high quality care no matter where their kids are.
That's particularly important when other child care options are out of reach.
Most of our kids are little tiny black and brown kiddos start school already behind their white peers. Children that live in areas where there isn't easy access to licensed care facilities or to high quality care.
Cecia went through the program herself and says it changed the way she works with kids and now works for the coalition and is a trainer herself.
They want to go work in a school, in preschool. You know, I've heard like it's just this, you know, new world.
So not only is this a more affordable option for families, the city is seeing it as a way to open up career paths, like you just heard from Cecia. And they were saying that the people who do end up getting child developed associate certificates, they can then connect to city resources. That includes food benefits for the kids they're caring for, help buying supplies. And when it comes to safety, that training program is also talking about first aid and CPR. But Kyle, it is really relying on this long-standing system of asking someone you know, someone you trust to take care of your kids. Families have the option to opt into this training and then enhance what that care looks like.
Yeah, how wonderful to go to somebody that you trust and then say, hey, here's some help, here's some resources. That said, Anusha, I know childcare is so personal, family to family, in terms of what they need and what they're looking for.
Yeah, absolutely. And so the part about this training is that it's supposed to be culturally competent. And so it's being translated into multiple languages. They're pulling examples in the training from certain cultures to tailor it to the families. And a big part of working with the city is actually developing a curriculum to help families with kids with disabilities. And that, ask Kyle, came from the providers, the aunts, uncles, and grandmas and grandpas themselves saying, we want to know more. We want to be more educated so that we can work with these kids even better.
And a chance to prevent burnout so that hopefully those families are well served for a long time. Really interesting. Anusha, thank you. So the city of Aurora has to have open shelter beds before the city can start widely enforcing its new rule that allows for Denver-style homeless sweeps. So the city of Aurora is working with the state on plans to open a 100-bed facility in like a warehouse-type building. We learned today that Aurora has conducted 15 sweeps of what are newly illegal campsites since this ban was put in place. Mayor Mike Kaufman has said that he would like to see an alternative housing site beyond just the idea of converting the Aurora Day Resource Center into a 24-hour shelter. The temporary plan is to expand the shelters at the Salvation Army and Restoration Christian Fellowship in Aurora. The longer-term plan is to convert the former Ridgeview Youth Services Center into a shelter for people experiencing homelessness. That project would receive state funding. That site would be focused on housing for people who have severe addictions or who are struggling with mental illness. It's not expected to be ready for 2 to 3 years. The city says since that ban took effect April 30th, they have received 218 notifications about campsites. 15 were swept by the city. 7 of them were on CDOT property, like under 225. All told, more than 24 people were moved out of those camping areas by the city. Aurora says not a single person asked for a shelter bed. There's a town hall in Aurora tomorrow that's going to include a discussion of homelessness in that city. It'll run from 2 to 3 at the Central Library branch on Alameda. A leading Republican candidate in Colorado's new 8th congressional district says that there is a plot to keep her out of this weekend's debate. Actually, Lori Sain failed to RSVP.
It's certainly not a good look for this event to say that somebody can't come in. If someone's available to come to an event, they should be allowed in the event.
The debate's host, the Republican Women of Weld, called it an unfortunate situation created by Sain. She holds the top line on the 4-person primary ballot. Sain told me that she assumed that the deadline for the debate was still open because people were still asking her if she was going to go. This is not Sain's first brush with misinformation during this campaign. Sain and talk radio host Dan Caplis both claimed without evidence that Democratic candidate Dr. Yadira Caraveo performed abortions. Dr. Caraveo's a pediatrician. Sain and Caplis have stopped making that abortion claim since we asked them to provide evidence.
A beautiful spring storm across Colorado, bringing some beneficial water to the state. And unless you're stuck on Vail Pass, which is currently closed, everybody I've talked to loves the water and doesn't mind the 50-degree temperature drop. Yesterday, we were close to 90 degrees, record territory. Today, 40. That was earlier today. We're down in the 30s now, and the snow reports are coming in. Elizabeth, 6 inches of snow now, 7 in Evergreen and Genesee, over 7 in Winter Park, 2 in the Parker area, Netherland with about 5. And again, these are just preliminary snow totals. The heavier snow is going to pick up after sunset when the cold air mixes in. Rain and snow will continue across eastern Colorado. We remain under a winter storm warning for 3 to 6 inches of snow for Denver, over a foot for the foothills. And then tonight, the cold freeze warning go into effect. Pipes and plants need protection as lows will fall into the mid-20s. The snow will go heavy overnight and then start to taper off during the day tomorrow. We should have some clearing by the afternoon, but even with a partly sunny day, it's going to be a chilly day. Temperatures in the 40s, about 30 degrees cooler than average. Sunday's a little milder. Monday looks cloudy and nice, and then thunder showers with more rain coming in the middle part of next week.
When we go from 90 degrees one day to winter weather the next, you best believe that our resident weather poet is going to have a few words to say about it.
Corey Reppenhagen is on the Weather Beat.
Spring and white collide, a bite of winter in May. Water is water.
That was Corey Reppenhagen on the Weather Beat.
He loves that so much. You know those cross-hatched areas that flank accessible parking spots? That's not free parking. You park there and you've crossed a line. It's just parking, yes, sure, but it's our neighbor's ability to go places as well. Next viewer, Lily, asked if we would spend a moment talking about this because she too often sees those spaces for accessibility ramps and lifts being taken up by other drivers, or even businesses that use them for outdoor patio space or storage. Lily's dad, Gary, has used a wheelchair since he was hit by a car while biking. He talked to us the other day about seeing other drivers, even empty shopping carts, blocking his way to go places.
For most people, it doesn't cause a big problem, but for me, I can't leave the car if it's sitting there. If someone's parked there or if there's a cart there, I can't extend the ramp without causing some sort of damage. When I approach spots and can't even park in them because someone else is in the crosshatch or way over the line, it's I don't want to say infuriating, but people should know better and they should behave better.
Sure that nobody's intentionally inconveniencing Gary and folks like him, but just a request for courtesy and kindness. And if those things don't matter, there's always the $350 ticket that you could get in Denver for parking on those cross-hatched areas right next to an accessible parking spot. Too often, older horses in Colorado that can't be ridden anymore are not put out to pasture. I mean, they love that. Instead, the horses are abandoned or they're sold to slaughterhouses. Colorado Horse Rescue saves those horses and finds new owners in Colorado willing to love them in their older years. And since Wednesday, you all have raised more than $30,000 to help that nonprofit save even more horses in Colorado. If you scan the QR code on your screen or text the word thanks to 303-871-1491, I'll send you the link to join me in giving to Colorado Horse Rescue. Their goal is to take in horses in need of a home without any judgment for the owner who's giving the horse up. With this week's campaign, your word of thanksgiving has topped $9 million. That has done some incredible good in Colorado.
Music as an outlet. Music sparking conversations.
Even in those moments when I am still wondering why I'm here, if I want to be here, I can use that music.
Survivors of suicide see music as a way to connect, to keep others who are struggling here for the long haul. That's next.
Music is many things, including a way to open up difficult conversations. This week, performers at Dazzle Jazz wanted to talk about the topic of suicide. Katie Eastman and photojournalist Ann Herbst listened in with an ear to the performer's lived experience.
A little bit better. Hello, beautiful people. I hope you all know that you matter.
One voice is all it takes to create connection.
There is so much pressure.
Words in Jocelyn Ford Keel's songs are her reality.
Still I dream.
But they remind the audience at Dazzle of the humanity they share.
Life has gone astray.
Jocelyn, who goes by Jafoki on stage, sings about her life.
I consider myself to be a mental illness victor.
A life.
Right?
She almost took.
But I'm also a suicide attempt, well, several suicide attempt survivor. With each moment, each note, each breath, each beat, I'm grateful. Mental illness isn't something that's talked about in my community, especially in the Black church. We would say, well, we're going to pray for you. We're going to, no one would admit that it was depression or even try and get diagnosed.
So Jocelyn sang about her struggles.
Remember to count my joy.
This song began as a journal entry in the psych ward of a hospital.
And when it
feels like all my hope is lost, and when it seems the world is caving in, I must remember to count my joy.
Jocelyn has always turned her experiences into songs, but now her voice is louder.
It is a daily battle, but we're battling.
As she performs at a musical tribute for mental health.
Literally telling people my business. And I don't like people knowing my business. I don't even tell people when I'm dating. I'm like, but there is a freedom in knowing that sharing my story can very well help someone else.
I know. Yeah.
Dr. Sally Spencer Thomas says Jocelyn's story will help others. Sally is the president of United Suicide Survivors International.
That's why we love it, too, because we can be authentic without being ashamed.
Their mission is to bring the voices of people impacted by suicide to the table.
Because we believe that people who have that lived expertise need to be at the center of this conversation, not as an afterthought, but as people who help lead and guide our advocacy efforts.
It never gets easier to talk about it. I'm a very private person, but it's so important that we talk about these things, and that the little Jofo Keys out there, the little black boys and little black girls know that it's okay to speak up and to reach out.
One voice means those who listen might join in. And a chorus of change begins. For Next, I'm Katie Eastman.
They look like the worst fake Christmas trees you've ever seen. Wildlife workers hope that these will help the fish population on the western slope. And we don't like to play favorites, but this Friday's good news has reached GOAT status. Next.
The reservoir at Crawford State Park near Black Canyon of the Gunnison is getting some new plant life. Plant life made of plastic. Colorado Parks and Wildlife is dropping 150 of these artificial trees into the bottom of the reservoir to improve the fish habitat. CPW says that reservoir is essentially like a large muddy bowl, and that is not appealing for fish who need to, get in the mood, bow chicka wow wow, make baby fish. The fake trees will provide some ambiance down there. The algae that grows on the fake trees is a place for eggs and for insect larvae to attach. Smaller fish can use the fake trees to hide in. That in turn attracts the larger fish. And the good news for us humans who might fish on Crawford is that our lures should not snag on those flexible tubes. The fake trees are already helping fish get in the mood to make fish babies at Harvey Gap and Highline Lake and Rifle Gap State Parks. For 299 Fridays, we have saved time here to share your good news. You get to decide the headline based on whatever is bringing you joy at the moment. For the 300th edition, our photojournalist Mike Grady found the greatest of all time, the GOAT of your Friday good news.
Medical alert, rapid response team.
It's just a nice change from our day-to-day operations.
Attention please. Baby goats are inside the hospital and attention please for hospital week.
The baby goats, celebrating nurses.
Well, we have lots of lovely goats here for hospital week.
She's so cute. They're kind of therapeutic for people, and they're just baby goats, right? They're self-explanatory. They're kind of fun. It is good news. Everybody loves a baby goat.
Just having fun, hanging out, petting the goats.
They're little pistols. They love to play. They run around all day, and I thought it was just really cool that the doctors and the nurses could interact with the goats.
Good stress relief for people, and obviously it's enjoyable, it's fun, it's a nice distraction from the stress of everyday work.
I just know they're a lot of fun. They keep your mind off of things. They love to be petted, and they're just great animals.
Certainly, we're on the go. There's a lot going on all the time. And so it's just kind of a little something to unwind and enjoy a little bit of relaxation time. So that is good. We like our staff happy. That is my good news.
Yeah, I mean, who doesn't want to go to work and hug a goat, right?
Good news. Can't bleed it. Some feedback next. Meredith writes, thank you for bringing a voice and light toward those suffering with thoughts of suicide. This only signed Patriot. High cost of health care? It's expensive as you make it. Most stuff you can find for free. With all respect, if my hot take was that kind of trash, I wouldn't sign my name either. See you next time.